Today, we're going to break down a beautifully simple but incredibly powerful lesson plan. It's all about teaching one of the most important skills a person can learn, how to prove what you're saying using proof, using evidence straight from a text.
So let's just imagine for a second. You ask a kid, maybe a third grader, to prove this statement. What are you going to hear? Well, 'cause they are, or the all-time classic, because I said so. And that is the exact hurdle we're talking about today, getting students to move from just stating an opinion to actually backing it up with evidence.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with why this matters so much. Then we'll get on the same page by defining some key words. After that, we dive into the real heart of the lesson, how a teacher can actually model their own thinking process. Then we'll see it in action, and finally, we'll talk about how you can be sure the students really got it.
First things first, we have to establish the why. This is about so much more than just a reading lesson. This is a life skill. We're teaching students how to form a solid argument based on facts, not just feelings. And that's something they're going to use forever, whether they're reading a news story or just trying to win an argument with a friend.
This right here, this is the golden rule for this entire lesson. It's a huge shift in thinking, right? It's moving away from, well, I feel like, to here is the objective proof. The evidence has to come directly from the text that everyone is looking at.
Okay, so before we can start building, we need to make sure our foundation is solid. We need a shared language. Before students can even begin to find proof, they've got to have the words to talk about what they're looking for.
First up, the big one, evidence. The definition here is so simple and so perfect. It's a sentence that you can find right there in the text that proves your answer is true. It's not a summary. It's not your own interpretation. It's the raw data, the hard proof.
So how do we present that evidence? With a quote. And a quote is just the exact words from the text. We're not paraphrasing here. We are literally lifting the words, word for word, from the page. That's what makes it so powerful. It's undeniable.
And last but not least, text. Now I know, this seems super basic, right? But it's actually really important to define it broadly. This whole method doesn't just work for stories in English class. It works for science articles, history documents, you name it. Any piece of writing you need to really understand.
All right, now we get to the absolute heart of the lesson, the I do phase. This is where the real magic happens. The teacher isn't just telling students what to do. They are making their own internal thought process completely visible for everyone to see. It's like pulling back the curtain on how a good reader thinks.
We start with a really simple, easy-to-read text like this one about Lena. And that's on purpose. The text is simple so that all the brain power can go towards learning the skill of finding evidence, not towards struggling to understand the words.
And here's our question to guide us. It's what we call a text-dependent question, which is just a fancy way of saying the only place you can find the answer is inside those 4 sentences. No guessing allowed. You have to prove it.
So how do you make your thinking visible? Well, you break it down into a simple 3-step recipe. First, you just answer the question simply in your own words. Second, you put on your detective hat and you hunt for the exact sentence that proves it. And third, you wrap it all up using a special sentence starter.
A teacher would literally think out loud here. They'd say something like, okay, I think I know the answer. Now I need to find my proof. Let me scan the text. Ah, here it is. And they'd point right to this sentence and say, this sentence right here is my evidence. This is my proof. It makes the whole abstract idea so concrete.
Now this is a total game changer. Think of these sentence starters like training wheels for writing. They give students a formal structure, a formula, so they don't have to stress out about how to phrase their answer. They can just focus on the important part, finding that evidence.
And voila! This is the final product. See how it all comes together? You've got the initial claim, you've got the smooth transition using the sentence starter, and then you have the direct quote as cold, hard proof. That is a complete, evidence-based, undeniable answer.
Okay, so the teacher has shown everyone how it's done. That was the I do. Now it's time to slowly start handing over the responsibility. We're moving into the we do and the you do phases, where the students get their hands dirty.
So you put up another simple one like this, but this time you do it together, as a class. This is the we do part. The teacher asks the students, okay everyone, what do you think? Where's the proof in this sentence? And you work through it as a team.
This comparison is just so effective. I mean, look at the difference here. It's night and day, right? On the left, you've got a weak answer that's basically just an opinion. But on the right, That's a strong answer. That's an argument. It's solid. It's proven. You can just see the difference.
All right, so you've done the lesson, you've practiced together, but how do you know if it actually worked, if it really stuck? You need a quick, simple way to check in with every student. And that's where something called an exit ticket comes in.
At the very end of class, you give every student a little slip of paper with a question like this. Their job is to answer it on their own, using the full method we just practiced. It's not a scary test. It's just a quick little pulse check.
And when the teacher looks at these, they have a little mental checklist. They're not just looking for the right answer, they're looking for the skill. Did the student find a good piece of evidence? Did they use that sentence starter structure? And does their proof actually, prove their point?
This is really the secret sauce behind the whole lesson. This I do, we do, you do model. It's a classic teaching strategy for a reason. You start with a ton of support, like a scaffold around a building, and then you gradually take it away piece by piece until the student is standing strong, all on their own.
And that kind of leaves us with one final big question, doesn't it? This entire lesson is about finding proof inside a text, but it also makes us turn that question around on ourselves, whether we're teaching or just learning. How do we find the proof that real learning actually happened? What's our evidence?